Sergeant John Riley was a Marine. 16 years he gave, 4 tours swallowed whole by the insatiable beast of war, Iraq, Afghanistan. Places most folks couldn't find on a map, etched permanently onto his soul. He was a warrior, forged in the crucible of combat, his senses honed, his reflexes lightning fast. He knew where he stood in the sand, in the dust, under the relentless sun. He knew his brothers, and they knew him. But homecoming was a different beast entirely. The anticipation was palpable. The scent of freshly cut grass, the promise of normalcy and a simple cup of coffee. He dreamt of his wife's embrace, the laughter of children he barely knew. He yearned for it, craved it like a man dying of thirst. But the reality was a punch to the gut. His wife, her face etched with the passage of time, held a distance in her eyes. His children, teenagers now, were strangers who shied away from his touch. He was home, yet utterly alone. Sleep offered no respite. The nightmares came, vivid and relentless, snatching him back to the inferno. The deafening roar of explosions, the stench of cordite and fear, the screams of men he couldn't save. He'd wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, a frantic tattoo against his ribs, the echo of gunfire still ringing in his ears. Reality blurred with the phantoms that haunted his waking hours. He built walls, tried to shut out the world that felt alien and cold. But the shadows seeped through the cracks, whispering his name, reminding him of the things he'd seen, the things he'd done. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like a raw nerve ending in a world of sandpaper. The enemy was invisible now, but no less real. Days bled into weeks and weeks into months. The darkness deepened, swallowing the remnants of his former self. He was adrift in a sea of his own making, the familiar shores of sanity receding with every passing hour. He couldn't escape the feeling that he was living on borrowed time, that the darkness would eventually consume him entirely. His reflection was a stranger, lost and broken. The world was a kaleidoscope of fractured images, a cacophony of sounds that set his teeth on edge. Crowded places became minefields, every sudden noise a potential threat. He saw danger where there was none, his mind conjuring enemies from the shadows. His senses, once his salvation, were now instruments of his torment. He knew he needed help, but the words stuck in his throat, choked by the fear of judgment, the shame of weakness. He was a Marine, for God's sake. Marines didn't break, they didn't crumble. He was supposed to be strong, a protector. But the weight of his invisible wounds was crushing him. He was lost in a labyrinth of his own mind, the way out shrouded in fog. Every day was a battle against the demons that whispered in his ear, that tugged him toward the abyss. He fought back, clinging to the tattered remnants of his sanity. Fueled by the faintest glimmer of hope, he was a Marine, and Marines never surrendered. He knew the fight was far from over. The scars, both visible and unseen, would forever be a part of him. But somewhere, beneath the pain and the fear, a flicker of hope remained. He would keep fighting for himself, for his family, for the memory of the man he once was. He would find his way back from the darkness, one agonizing step at a time. The journey to healing was just beginning.